In this video, we are going to be talking all about the throat chakra, what it is, what it means to have a balanced or imbalanced throat chakra, and in the end, I'll give you ways to balance the chakra and some affirmations to help you along the way. Please keep in mind that the majority of this information is channeled through meditation, so if it resonates with you, then great, and if not, that's totally fine too. The throat chakra is the fifth chakra from the base, and it resides in the throat area. Makes sense. It's associated with the color blue, and the Sanskrit name is Vishuddha, which translates to especially pure. So when I meditated on this particular chakra, I actually had a difficult time really understanding the concept of using the throat chakra. I think it was because I was just getting a lot of visuals and symbols, and it was difficult for me to really grasp. So please bear with me. Also, I think it's because it's one of the higher chakras. And so you're kind of coming out of this innate way of expressing yourself, and now you're going into a place of using it as a tool and articulating what you're experiencing. So again, this is just what I got through meditation, okay? So take it or leave it. The throat chakra can be used in two ways. The first way is purely for expression. And so when you activate the throat chakra in this sense, you are using it just to express everything that is inside of you, whether it's emotionally or spiritually, psychologically, anything or an idea. You're expressing yourself just for the sake of expressing it. So this is oftentimes used in art or in journaling or just writing for yourself personally. You're just expressing anything that's going inside within you. But the other way that the throat chakra is activated, which is the more commonly understood meaning of the throat chakra, is through communication. And so this chakra is activated in this sense when you are trying to articulate an idea, or you are trying to have a conversation with someone and you want them to understand what you're saying. So I think maybe this is why I was getting a little confused by the information that was coming in, because it's primarily used in two different ways. And so when you are purely just doing it to express yourself, you can do that in a way that is healing, because the throat chakra really is used as a tool. You can use it as a tool for healing. And so when you are healing yourself or healing one of your other chakras or healing traumas, you can use the throat chakra in order to do that by just simply expressing it in some way. So even if you are not necessarily using your throat, but you are writing or you're journaling or you're even singing a song or just even going to a therapist and speaking, you are activating your throat chakra in that sense. But when it comes to using it in communication or for communication purposes, it is important for this particular part for you to have your lower chakras balanced. This is because you are going to be using your throat chakra as a tool in tandem with another chakra, oftentimes. So, for example, if you are having a conversation with a romantic partner and you're trying to express how you feel about them, then you'll be using the throat chakra in tandem with the heart chakra, for example. Or if you are being intimate with this same partner and you want to express yourself sexually, then you could be using their throat chakra and your sacral chakra simultaneously. So again, it's either you're just expressing yourself for your own personal reasons, or you are using it to communicate with someone. And if you are communicating with someone, then the lower chakra should be balanced. So when I asked, why does the Sanskrit name translate to especially pure, what I got is that when you truly have all of your other chakras, your lower chakras at least, well, you should have all of your chakras honestly balanced, but at the very least, your lower chakras, when you have them balanced, then when you express yourself, the expression really should be fairly pure. And by pure, I mean authentic. And you truly mean what you say and what you're expressing. This, of course, is different if you were using your throat chakra for healing purposes. Because if you're using it for healing, then you're not necessarily communicating this to someone else, because that is not the point of you using your throat chakra in that sense. The point is for you to get out whatever is stored inside of your body and just get it out of your body in whatever way that you need to. So whether it's singing or talking about it, writing, maybe like a somatic yoga or dance, painting even, you're just expressing it. You're basically just becoming an artist and just getting whatever it is inside of you out into the world. And when you do this, this isn't necessarily so that other people can see it. You're doing it for yourself. And, if that's the case, then you're probably working on those chakras simultaneously. Like if you are journaling about something that happened to you, and it has something to do with the other chakras, then you are using those in tandem, but you're not doing it to communicate that to someone, you're just doing it to heal it. And every time I've ever thought about the throat chakra, it is considered to be one of the higher chakras, and I never really understood why until I had this meditation, because I just figured speaking or singing and expressing, those just kind of come out of you naturally. And why would the throat chakra be higher than the heart chakra? I was just a little confused. And so from what I've gathered, it is because you have to kind of use some thought process when you're articulating the things that you actually want to express out into the world. And especially when you are having a conversation with someone, you want to be fairly intentional. And of course, you want to be intentional for the most part with all of your chakras. But this chakra is particularly important because it will always be your throat chakra that is used when you are expressing any of your chakras. And I know that probably the majority of this information is going to maybe contradict some of the information that's out there, but I'm just letting you know that this is what I got, so I'm just going to give it to you. So what are some signs of a balanced throat chakra? One sign is that you can just freely express yourself. And this goes into the first part of how you can activate your throat chakra. And this is specifically just for the sake of expressing yourself only. So it's not to express yourself to other people, but rather just to get your internal thoughts and feelings out into the world somehow. So this could be in the form of painting or writing or public speaking or singing, slam poetry, anything that requires you to just express yourself. So for me, I really need to paint because I've got some canvases and I have paint, but I have just had a really difficult time finding the time. But the other way that I express myself is through YouTube, which I will say has been very healing for me. It helps me feel much more balanced. And I don't have to talk about these things with people who don't want to hear it. At least if you're watching this, then for the most part, you're at least open to hearing it, or open to the ideas anyway, which is all I ask for. Another sign of a balanced throat chakra, and this is probably the most obvious, would be clear communication. People who have a balanced throat chakra don't really have a hard time conveying their thoughts and their feelings. But of course, when it comes to communication, right, the lower chakras really should be balanced. And this would also require a higher level of emotional intelligence so that one can identify your thoughts and feelings in the first place before you can even express them. And some people do have a hard time communicating when they are upset or just angry about something. They have a hard time communicating it. Sometimes it's because they really just don't understand how they feel and they don't understand why they feel that way. And so that's more of like an emotional intelligence kind of thing first. And even if you have a hard time physically speaking, that doesn't necessarily mean you have an imbalanced throat chakra, because people who are even deaf or have like a speech impediment, they still can have imbalanced throat chakra because they still can communicate in other ways and they can communicate it clearly in those ways. Another sign of a balanced throat chakra is authenticity. Now, again, the lower chakras do have to be balanced in order for this to be achieved, because you can't express your authentic self if you don't know what your authentic self is. And so once you have discovered that, it actually does make it easier to speak clearly and to convey your own thoughts and feelings authentically in that sense. Because if you understand who you are, you should be able to just naturally share that with other people. And obviously, you're probably just going to do this with people that you have a relationship with, like a friendship or a romantic partner, things like that, people that you trust. Another sign of a balanced throat chakra is knowing when to not speak. These people tend to have the ability to know when to pick and choose their battles. They know which words to choose. And if anything, sort of gets out of control, then they know how to de-escalate the conversation easily. So definitely don't want this to be confused with being scared to speak, because they're not holding back because they're afraid of the repercussions. They are really, it's more like controlling the conversation in a sense. I think that this is why hostage negotiators are highly trained in communication. I mean, it's pretty powerful to watch someone who is in complete control of the words that they are saying. And it's interesting to watch someone who has complete control versus someone who does not and feels like they need to get the last word in, or they just have something to prove. It's really fascinating. But again, a lot of that has to do with whether or not your other chakras are balanced. What are some signs of an imbalanced throat chakra? One sign is stuttering or stammering. Now, of course, there are people who just have a disorder. Maybe there's a brain abnormality. Maybe there is some sort of chemical imbalance. There could be a number of physical things that cause the stuttering. There could also be, past traumas that can cause the stuttering. And so obviously a prerequisite for working on all of your chakras is to heal the traumas. And then of course, heal the physical body, right? First and foremost, because your physical body needs to be in tip-top shape in order to really function at its fullest capacity. But if all of those things have been ruled out, there is a possibility that it could be an imbalanced throat chakra. But a lot of the times, chakras are imbalanced because of something. And so what is the issue? Could it be a past life issue? I've heard of people speaking their truth in a past life and then they were hung, right? So that's all throat chakra stuff right there. And in this lifetime, they have some sort of speech impediment. Is it a karmic issue? It could be a number of things. So that is a possibility of why the throat chakra may be imbalanced or why you may have a stutter. And it is interesting because when someone stutters, they're clearly trying to communicate something, but it's almost like pressured and they just can't quite get it out. And so, that is a pretty good sign that that chakra is trying to balance itself and it just can't in that moment. Another sign of an imbalanced throat chakra is inappropriate emotional outbursts. Now, it's one thing to have, an emotional reaction to some sort of big event in your life, right? So it's fairly normal to cry, at a funeral, or if you, get into an argument or something, right? I'm more talking about things that are inappropriate and it's just not timed well and it's a little uncalled for. Now, of course, this could be from trauma, it could be from a number of things, but it also could be the result of not exercising your throat chakra on a regular basis. And so it's just pent up energy that eventually just explodes and it just explodes out of nowhere. Another sign of an imbalanced throat chakra is bottling up your feelings. This is a pretty clear sign, especially when someone is visibly upset and won't express that they're upset, but they continue to behave in a way that tells you that they're upset. And then when you ask them what's wrong, they say nothing. This often is a precursor to the inappropriate emotional outburst. And I think that's why when this happens to people, like if someone is upset and they're not telling them they're upset and the other person is trying to figure out why they're so upset, and then eventually it comes out, then the person receiving it tends to be a little confused because so much time has passed by already that they can't connect the original cause of the upset to the emotional outburst at a later time. So really, they're just not using their throat chakra as much as they should in that case. Another sign of an imbalanced throat chakra is saying things that you don't mean. Sometimes people say things that they don't mean as a result of an emotional outburst, or sometimes they say things out of fear of rejection or maybe even just flat out manipulation. This, of course, is a case-by-case basis, but this is usually in tandem with another chakra being imbalanced. But interestingly enough, what I channeled is that it is possible for you to say something that you don't mean or to flat out lie and you to still have a balanced throat chakra. Now, hear me out. The reason why is if you are actually doing it intentionally, then you are still clearly communicating what it is that you want to communicate because you are intentionally trying to manipulate the conversation or the situation in order to go into your favor. So that's the only reason why you're communicating what you're communicating, and you're doing it clearly for a result. But of course, this would most likely mean that there is another chakra that is definitely imbalanced if you're doing that. I mean, really, it probably would be the heart chakra or the solar plexus chakra that would be imbalanced if you're doing that. But yeah, your throat chakra could still be balanced in that sense. It's so strange. I think that's probably why the throat chakra was just so complicated for me. I don't know. So what are some ways to balance the throat chakra? Well, first and foremost, a good way is to just start expressing yourself. And this is not in any way for communication purposes. It's just to express yourself just for the sake of doing it. So whether it's going to therapy and speaking to someone or speaking to a friend, writing, journaling, writing a song, singing, even dancing, just anything that expresses the energy that is in your body. But of course, it would be better to be a little bit more intentional. And so even if you wanted to dance out some sort of stored energy that's in your body, even writing it down or just saying out loud the thing that you're trying to get out and then dancing it with that intention in your mind can activate the throat chakra. Believe it or not. I know. So weird, so complicated. I think a really good way to do that would be EFT tapping. Like the emotional freedom technique, I'm a huge fan of it. I think it works amazingly well. But basically, you're just saying affirmations and then tapping on meridian points. And I can definitely vouch for this, that this 100% works. And maybe I'll just make a separate video about that because it's a whole thing. But yeah, EFT tapping would be a good way to express anything that's going on inside of you. Another way to balance the throat chakra is to work on your authenticity. Of course, I think that this would be one of the earlier things that you would do within your spiritual practice, especially after healing your traumas. Becoming your authentic self really should be something that just happens naturally anyway. And the more you become your authentic self, it becomes easier to express that to other people. A lot of the work would be based out of the solar plexus chakra first. And then as time goes on, when you are trying to express who you are, you really won't have a difficult time finding the words to convey that message. Another way to balance your throat chakra is to practice your communication skills. Now, this helps balance the throat chakra more so to help the throat chakra become a more effective tool. Because having the inability to communicate things clearly can get in the way of us truly expressing ourselves the way that we want to express ourselves. Sometimes we don't know the right words to say. Maybe we don't make eye contact or we say a lot. But honestly, these are just things that you can just work on. Like there's really no spiritual practice that needs to be done in any sense. You just literally work on the communication aspect. I actually recently purchased a communications course and I have yet to start it, but I am really looking forward to it because it's just going to help me communicate with you better. Another way to balance the throat chakra is to tell jokes. I will admit that when this information came through, I thought it was kind of silly. And I mean, it's probably just my own human judgment, right? But I'm just picturing someone just going up to a stranger and just telling a really corny joke. That was my own human visualization. That wasn't like information channeled. But apparently, the reason why telling jokes is a good way to balance the throat chakra is because it helps break the ice, really. And it helps open a line of communication with another person. And as long as it is timed well and it is not offensive, then it really can be a good way to form a connection with someone else. And it can help build rapport and trust with another person so that those lines of communication can start to flow a little bit more freely. But this is why public speakers and motivational speakers often use humor in their speeches. It's because they're trying to form a connection with their audience. But again, I think you would just have to really read the room because sometimes there are times when it's just not appropriate to crack jokes. I would know, being a nurse in the ER, there's a special humor that comes with that job. And that humor is not exactly timed well. Another way to balance the throat chakra is to become comfortable sitting in silence. Sometimes we feel the need to fill the air so that we can avoid awkward silence. But when you do that, you tend to just say things that are a little bit more trivial and don't really contribute anything meaningful to the conversation. And sometimes when you feel the need to do that, it's really a sign of like an overactive throat chakra. This obviously is more geared towards people who tend to talk a little too much, or they tend to just overshare. I know that I definitely did this during the beginning of my spiritual awakening because I was having so many crazy and cool experiences that I just wanted to share it with anybody who would listen. And I mean, I really just had diarrhea of the mouth, and I was just sharing these things with some people that really just didn't care. And I think, there would be times where I would upset people, and it had nothing really to do with me because they probably were just battling their own issues with their own spirituality. And, whatever, there could be a number of things, but I know I have made people feel uncomfortable. And so my throat chakra was definitely overactivated at those times. But a really good way for me to get over that was by starting a YouTube channel. Because at least if you're watching this, then it means that you kind of want to be here. And I really appreciate it. It truly helps me. You being here helps me heal my throat chakra. So thank you. And so some body parts that are associated with the throat chakra are the thyroid, the pharynx, larynx, and the cervical spine. Some crystals that you can use are lapis lazuli, angel light, and turquoise. And the foods that I got were pretty limited. I only got blueberries and peppermint tea. And the affirmations I have for you are, I express myself freely. And the other affirmation is, I am proud to speak my truth. But with that being said, I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.